What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Yojide, and if it's your first time stopping by, you are most definitely welcome. So on today's episode, I'm going to be showing us how I made this beautiful silk shirt with this detail at the sleeves. You can see I have this ostrich feathers here, right here. Yeah, so guys, I've made this short. You can check this out in my last tutorial. I drafted the pattern and I also made the short. So guys, if this shirt is something you're interested in, let's get right into the video. So I'm going to be drafting the pattern on this pattern paper first. So now this is the front pattern. The first thing I'm going to do is from the middle of the paper, I'm going to mark in 2.5 inches from the top to the bottom. This 2.5 inches is going to serve as the button allowance. Remember, 2.5 inches button allowance from the center front of the pattern paper, and I'm just going to connect all the lines like so. So the next thing I'm going to mark is my shoulder line or my border line. So I just marked ½ inch across, and as you can see, I'm joining all the points together. So I'm just going to label that the shoulder line. The next thing I'm going to mark is my bust line, which is 10 inches, my waistline, which is 16 inches, and the hip line, that's the full length of the shirt, which is 24 inches. So I'm just going to mark that at another point so I can get straight horizontal lines. So I have my bust line, my waistline, and then the full length of the shirt. So as you can see, I'm just going ahead to label them bust line and waistline. So now the next thing I'm going to do is mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2. My shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2. I'm going to ahead to mark 7. Then for the neck, my neck depth is 3 inches and the neck wideness is also 3 inches. And as you can see, I'm just connecting them together like so, and I made a little curve, which is going to make my neck a round neck curve. Then the next thing I did was to take my shoulder slope. I just came down by ½ inch from that shoulder measurement I marked earlier, and I connected it into the neck area. So to get my armhole curve, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurement on my bust line, and I came up there by 2 inches. So just mark 7 on your bust line, and from there come up by 2 inches. And I connected that 2 inches to the shoulder slope I drew earlier, and I just drew out that line. So this will serve as my chest line now. So that is how to get your armhole. So now the next thing, I'm going to divide the armhole length into 2. So and I'll mark the middle. From that middle, I'm going to come in by ½ inch. Then I'm going to mark 1/4 of my bust measurement on that same chest line. As you can see, 34 divided by 4, that's 8.5. I'll mark the same thing on my bust line itself. Then on my waistline, I'm just going to mark 1/4 of my waist. So now the next thing, I'm going to join my armhole curves, so using my curve rule. So as you can see, I'm taking note of that ½ inch I came in by on the middle of my armhole. So just connect all 3 dots like so. So now guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to add my sewing allowance, which is 1.5 inches on all the measurement I have. So on the full length of my shirt, I'm going to mark 1/4 of my hip measurement. So I marked 10 and I added 1 inch as sewing allowance. My hip measurement is 40 divided by 4, that is 10. So now guys, we are basically done with the front pattern, and we are just going to cut this out. So before I cut it out, I'm just going to fold in this button allowance I made earlier so that I won't spoil the neck area. So I'll just cut out my pattern like so, and we'll get ready to cut the back pattern. So guys, before I go on the shoulder, I'm just going to come down by 1 inch and cut this out. I'm going to add this 1 inch I cut from here. I'm going to add it back to the back pattern when I'm drafting the back pattern. So I'll just cut this out like so, and yeah, this is it. We are done with the front pattern, and I'm just going to go ahead to label it. So for the back pattern, I'm just going to go ahead to add this piece of paper to it to add to the length of my shirt, because it's not going to be enough. So now guys, the first thing I'm going to do is on the back pattern, you can see on my shoulder line, I'm going to come down by 2 inches. Yes, so you can see 2 inches. This is going to be my shoulder line. I intentionally left that space above. We are going to make use of it later. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my bust line, which is 10 inches, my waistline, which is 16 inches, and the full length of my shirt, which is 24 inches. I'm going to mark these at another point, so I can connect all the points together and get straight horizontal lines. And I'm just going to go ahead to label them. I have the bust line, the waistline, and the hip line. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do is mark half of my shoulder length, which is 7 inches, and I'm going to mark my neck measurement. Neck wideness 3 inches. Neck depth for back is going to be 1 inch, as you can see, just 1 inch, because you don't want the back depth to be too deep. And I'm just going to make that little curve. The next thing I'm going to do is get my shoulder slope, come down by 1 inch on the shoulder, and connect this back to the neckline. So guys, to get my armhole curve and length, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurement on the bust line, and I'm going to come up by 2 from there and connect that to the shoulder slope I made earlier. And I'm just going to rule this out like so to make my chest line, just like I did for the front pattern. So guys, the next thing is to use my armhole curve to get my armhole curve. Yes, so guys, the next thing I'm going to do is mark quarter of my bust measurement on the bust line, and I'm going to add 1 inch sewing allowance. I'm doing the same thing for my waistline, quarter of my waistline, or quarter of my waist measurement, then 1 inch sewing allowance. And I'm doing the same thing for the hip line. So that's the full length of the shirt, quarter of my hip measurement and 1 inch sewing allowance. So guys, and as you can see, I've gone ahead to join all the sides together. So guys, don't forget that 1 inch we took out from the shoulder on the front. You can see I've returned this back to the shoulder slope here on the back, and as you can see, I've connected all points together. So guys, this is it. You can see it's very simple. We are basically done with the back pattern, and I'm just going to cut it out like so. So guys, I'm going to go ahead now to label this back pattern. So guys, I'm going to use these 2 patterns to cut out on the main fabric. So the fabric I'm going to be using is going to be this blue navy blue silk fabric. Yes, and for this shirt I used about 1.5 yards. I didn't use up to 2 yards. Okay, well, just get 2 yards because of the shirt sleeve. So guys, I've cut out my patterns using the fabric. As you can see, I left sewing allowance on the shoulder slope area, and for the hemline I left 2.5 inches sewing allowance, and I also left little 0.5 inches allowance on the neck area. The only part I didn't leave allowance is the middle part. As you can see, for the front pattern I didn't leave any sewing allowance there because we already added sewing allowance to the sides. So guys, now it is time for us to join. I'm going to open up my back pattern. This is my back pattern. So for your front pattern, you're going to have 2 pieces because the front is divided into 2 because of the button. So I'm just going to place and set the patterns on each other like so, the front on the back piece, and I'm going to go ahead now to sew the shoulder by half of an inch. That is what I left as my sewing allowance. So guys, here it is. I've gone ahead to sew my shoulders. This is what it looks like, and I'm just going to go ahead now to arrange them properly, as you can see. So guys, the next thing now to do is to hold in our button allowance. Remember, we left 2 inches on the front as our button allowance. So I'm just going to be folding this twice. I'll fold it by 0.5 inches first, and I'm going to fold it again in a bigger manner using 1.5 inches like so, as you can see. So this is going to be our button allowance. So I'll go ahead to do that for the other side too, and sew down. Just sew that down using the same color of thread as the material too. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do is sew down the sides. So remember, we left 1 inch sewing allowance on the side after taking our measurement. So this is it. I've gone ahead to sew down by 1 inch. So this is what the shirt is looking like already. I'm going to go ahead now to iron the sides also. So guys, the next thing is to cut out our collars. So to do that, I'm going to take a round measurement of what I have on my neck, you know, the front and back all together, from one end of the neck to the other. And as you can see, I have about 19 inches, or is it 18? Yeah, I think I have 18 inches. So guys, the first thing I'm going to be cutting is going to be the collar stand. So now I'm going to divide that 19 inches into 2. I have 9.5. Yes, I'll divide that into 2, and I'm on this paper I'm going to mark 9.5 inches. As you can see, 9.5 inches. Yes. So guys, then from there I'll come in by ½ inch, just like so, and then I'm going to get the middle of this 9.5 inches that I have. I'm going to mark the middle, as you can see, like this. Then the next thing, I'm going to connect these 2 points together. This is very easy to do. Just follow this step by step. So guys, the next thing now is to determine our collar stand wideness. So as you can see, I'm using 1 inch from one end to another, 1 inch, and I'm going to use my curve rule to get that curve. So I'm just going to join this other end like this. So from this part, I'm going to come down by ½ inch and just blend it into this other line here. So guys, that is basically it. We are done with the collar stand. This is very easy to do. Like I said, just follow these steps. So I'm going to cut this out. So the next thing I'm going to be cutting out now is the actual collar itself. This one I've cut out here is the collar stand. So yeah, let's go ahead to cut out the collar itself. I'm just going to go ahead now to label this. This is the collar stand, like I said. So guys, the next thing now is the collar itself. So remember, we have 19 inches divided by 2. I've marked 9.5 inches. So this collar wideness is going to be 3 inches. As you can see, I've marked 3 inches. That's the wideness. So on this part here, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and I'm going to slant this in a diagonal form to this under angle here. And at this point here, I'm going to come in by 1 inch also and connect this back to this other folded area. And that is it, guys, for the collar itself. I'm just going to cut this out like so. You can always rewind this to watch this step by step. So I'm just going to go ahead to label that. We have the collar and the collar stand. So I'm going to cut out my fabrics using this pattern. So when cutting, remember to leave at least ½ inch sewing allowance. And for each of these patterns, I'm going to cut out 2 pieces. You need 2 pieces for each, because you need to use one to line the other. So for the collar stand also, I left ½ inch sewing allowance all the way. So guys, as you can see, like I mentioned, I'm going ahead now to, you know, cut out the other piece. So we have 2 pieces of each. So guys, these are all my pieces. I have 4 pieces of the collar part. So this is what they look like. So guys, the next thing now, let's start to sew our collar. I'm going to place one on the other like so. So this is what it's going to look like. So guys, I'm going to go ahead to the sewing machine now to sew down that part that I traced using my hand. I've sewn the both edges, and I've sewn that other part also. And as you can see, I'm just notching the area, so you know it can be very smooth and lay flat. And I'm just going to turn this inside out. So this is what it looks like. So guys, you can see I'm going to place this collar itself in the middle of the collar stand, you can see, and I'm going to use the other collar stand to cover up both pieces. Then I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and sew this round from one edge to the other. Just place the collar itself in the middle of the collar stance. So guys, I'm gonna head to iron this, and you can see my collar is taking shape already. This is what it looks like. So guys, the next thing now is to attach the collar that we've made onto the neck part on the shirt. So I'm gonna head to notch the middle of the neck area. Then I'm going to notch the middle of the collar I've made itself, and as you can see, this is what it's going to look like. So guys, the next thing you are going to do is you're going to take this collar to the ironing table. I want to make sure that I fold this in, because I need to place the shirt, the neck area, in the middle of this collar. You can see I'm going to place it in the middle of the collar stand. So I'm going to take this to the ironing table, and you can see iron that pattern. Just iron all the edges round, and after ironing, I'm going to place my neck area into the middle of the collar like so. And I'm going to take this to the sewing machine now and sew this down in a straight line. So guys, the next thing is to work on my sleeve. So guys, for the sleeve, I'm gonna head to draft out the basic sleeve. I have a tutorial on basic sleeve on my channel. You can go ahead to watch that. So guys, my sleeve length is going to be 21 inches, but because I want to add cuff, my cuff is going to be 3 inches. So if you remove 21 inches from if you remove 3 inches from 21 inches, you're going to have 18 inches. So this sleeve here I have is 18 inches plus 1 inch allowance, that's 19 inches. And for my cuff, as you can see, my cuff, I have 3 inches in length and 1 inch sewing allowance. So this is it. Remember, we're making a shirt sleeve. So guys, this is what my cuff looks like. My cuff is actually folded into two. If you open it up, this is what it's going to give you. It's going to give you about 8 inches, so just fold it up. Just fold it and you get what you want. Then the length is 12 inches. This length is a function of what I have on my wrist. Whatever you have as your wrist measurement, just add your sewing allowance. You can see here I have 5.5 inches. My wrist is 10 inches, then 1 inch sewing allowance, that's 11 divided by 2, that's 5.5. Then you can see on this cuff here too, I have 11 inches. So like I said, the cuff length is a function of what you have on your wrist. So this is how it's going to look like. So, and on this shirt sleeve, I'm going to be putting an ostrich feather there, but first let's work on the sleeve. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do now is hold my sleeve by 1/2 inch, but I'm not going to hold this all the way down because of that shirt hole I'm going to be putting. So from the edge of the sleeve, I'm going to come up by 3 inches, and that is where I'm going to be stopping the sewing. 3 inches here. So I've gone ahead to sew this down, you can see, and I didn't sew this part that I marked earlier. Then I'm just going to mark in 1/2 inch, and I'm going to cut that out. This is not necessary, so I'm going to be using a bias to turn that part I just cut out. So this is what it looks like. So now guys, the next thing I'm going to do now is to add my ostrich feathers first. So after I add my ostrich feathers, I'm going to use a bias to turn that area I've cut out. So I'm just going to sew this ostrich feather from one end of the sleeve. I'm going to sew on the ostrich feather itself from one edge of the sleeve to the other. So guys, this is what it looks like. The next thing now is to use this bias to turn that area I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to place this on both the ostrich feathers and the material itself. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, so I've gone ahead to turn this. I'm going to sew this on the right side, then I'm going to turn it on the left side, just like how you would use a bias. So that is how you are going to finish this opening. So guys, this is what it looks like. I've gone ahead to sew my ostrich feathers, and I've also gone ahead to use the bias to turn that opening. So guys, the next thing to do now is to add our cuff. So guys, before we add our cuff, I'm going to take this to the ironing table and sew both edges like so. So guys, I'm back. I'm gonna sew the edges. So this is what they look like. So I'm just going to turn this to the wrong side and I'm going to sew this down on both edges. As you can see, sew both edges neatly by 1/2 inch, and I'm just cutting off the excess. So I'm going to turn this to the right side like so. Then I'm just going to turn this in. This is why it's important for you to sew down that edge, or rather iron. So guys, the next thing now, I'm going to fix in the edge of my sleeve into my cuff like so. As you can see, I'm just going to arrange this inside and I'm going to sew this down, and I'm going to make sure my stitches are neat. So guys, I'm done with it. This is what it looks like. So as you can see, the next thing is to fix my buttons and make my buttonholes. I'm going to make 2 buttonholes and fix 2 buttons. So guys, I'm gonna head to do that to another sleeve. You can see I have 2 sleeves here. So I'm going to be joining these sleeves to my shirt that I made earlier. So guys, here it is. Where we stopped on the shirt was the collar part. So guys, I'm going to go ahead now to fix my sleeves to the armhole part. So I'm just going to take a measurement of what I have on the armhole. Here I have 10 inches. So I'm going to make sure that is also what I have on the armhole of the shirt. This is very good. I have 10 inches also. So now the next thing is to place my armhole, my shirt sleeve rather, on my armhole, and I'll make sure those parts that have joinings are facing each other, they are laid on each other. So guys, I'm gonna head to join both of my arms or both of my sleeves to my shirt, and this is what it looks like. The next thing now is to add my buttons and make my buttonholes. So for my buttonholes, the first button here on this neck part is going to be horizontal like this. Then from that point, I'm going to come down by 5 inch and I'm going to make another hole. I'm just noting the part where I want my holes to be. So the difference between my buttonholes is going to be 5 inches. They're going to be 5 inches apart. So after that neck part, the next buttonholes that would follow, they are actually straight, not slanted like that on the neck area or the collar area, right? Yes, so that is it. I'm just taking notes. 5 inches difference, and that is it for my buttonholes. And I'm going to take this to the sewing machine to make my buttonholes. And for the hem, I'm just going to fold this twice and sew down. Then I'm going to add my buttons. So guys, this is the finished look. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know in the comment section below. So guys, please don't forget to give this video a big fat thick thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you are yet to. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.